Welcome to Billy's List. Cool dudes who know cool stuff. Please like and subscribe to the Macrodosing YouTube, and I hope you enjoy the show. Back to Billy's List. We have our new Ep.3 co-host, Gage, the Storm Chaser. Gage. So we're talking about this coming in. Turns out the storm chasing game sometimes makes you some enemies.
Yeah, I was trying to check the Discord for your link that you were going to send, and there was a dude in there talking about me stealing footage or whatever. But I think whatever that is probably some kind of a personal issue I have with somebody else that he probably knows. Like, it's crazy that we met in the Billy's List chat, though. It's a small world for the little science subreddit or whatever. But if that guy wants to like message me privately or whatever, I'll buy him a beer and he can like know who I am. But I don't know who that guy is.
Is that a big issue in the storm chasing community? People accusing each other of stolen footage and whatnot?
Well, actually it is, and like getting footage stolen, like the way footage can be stolen is just like some random ass foreign YouTube page posts your stuff up and it gets 30,000 views or something like that, and then they monetize that and they can make money off of it. You can go through and copyright strike that kind of stuff. Like, I'm sure you guys have to do that kind of stuff quite a bit, but I think I know kind of the situation that guy's talking about, and it's pretty personal, and I'm not trying to be toxic about it like that. Like,
oh, word. No, we can glance by it, but it's kind of crazy that every community has its like type of controversy, be it, you know, cheating in gaming, I mean, video stealing and storm chasing. But
yeah,
I mean, I drove through an ice storm on the way to LA going through West Arkansas. No,
I
going
remember
to
following
Memphis.
that.
Yeah, that was wild. And that's not a situation. There was a rush from it, but
Oh yeah,
not something I would want to do again, especially, I mean, the Chevy Silverado was it was a tank of a vehicle and I felt pretty safe in it, but not a high I'd try to chase again. But I mean, what you do, what's your day job and how did you get into storm chasing?
so mainly the reason I got into storm chasing is the way I try to explain it to people without being corny is it's kind of just something you can't avoid. It's something that you like so much. Like when I grew up in a place called Purcell, Oklahoma. It's just south of Norman in Oklahoma City. And so there are multiple dates that I remember, like May 10th, 2010 and May 24th, 2011, where multiple tornado warnings like went right by my house, north and south, multiple storms in the days. And I remember just like my mom putting the baseball helmets on us and putting us in the bathtub with all the mattresses and pillows and everything. And I just remember like everybody else was scared, but I was just so interested. And I remember my dad, he lived up on the hill a little bit further in south of town. And I remember him calling us while we were in the shelter. I was like, "What do you see, Dad? Like, tell me what's going on." He was like, "You guys, all I know is you guys need to be in the shelter," and telling me that kind of stuff. And that's like the earliest kind of things that I remember. And as it grew and as I started to understand science and like progress through, I'm not by any means, I don't have like a meteorology degree or anything like that. I'm too scatterbrained to usually do well in school. Like, for example, I dropped out of school kind of essentially because school wasn't going great for me, and then started storm chasing full time, quote unquote, because that's not really a thing. But I'm answering your question in a really roundabout way. But the way I got started is because it's just something I've really, really been passionate about and curious about and wanted to learn about for so long that I have learned a lot about it just through different channels and seeking out different mentors. And like a lot of the people in the storm chasing community are really receptive and will teach you quite a bit, like veteran type storm chasers. And that's where I learned all kinds about like nowcast forecasting and like being able to look at a satellite loop combined with like surface observations from a certain area and like being able to get a general idea of what's happening in the atmosphere. That was all taught to me by people that I like seeked out or sought out. excuse me, and got knowledge from. And when you ask, what's your day job? So how do you make money from storm chasing? You sell your footage, or you get a monetized YouTube page with a bunch of views. But like the way you got to do that is by chasing every day and posting every day, even if it's like a corny, like slight risk for big time storms or whatever. But the risk is 1 out of 10 times it might happen. You got to go out there, you got to chase, even if it's not going to happen, and stream. And that's how you keep a good YouTube built up. And I've kind of gotten to the point where I've grown out of wanting to do all that. So I found different avenues. Like right now I'm doing some real estate photography. I used to work in the cannabis industry a little bit because we've got medical marijuana here in Oklahoma, and that worked out pretty well, but it's not nearly like a stable enough career. At least for me, it didn't work out that way. So the direct answer to your question is I have several different day jobs that just try to keep it to where I can storm chase. And when I storm chase successfully, it's somewhat lucrative.
Oh no, I bet. I mean, it's crazy like how some people are just amazing learners, but a classroom environment just isn't, doesn't vibrate with them. But
Yeah.
if you get something that's, because I'm sort of the same way, I find something that like just lights up my brain, I'll learn everything about it. And like, a lot of people learn way faster, way better that way. But in a classroom setting, it's just like this doesn't interest me at all. But
it was kind of a situation where, like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your next question. But it was like a situation where I had like a good path set up. I was lucky enough to get to go play baseball in college at a small school in Oklahoma. And like everything's in my brain, everything seemed to be going great. But I'd be out there in the outfield because I was a pitcher, and you only do like 20, 30 minutes of practice if you're a pitcher, and then you just basically shag balls for the hitters. And I'd be out there just staring at the clouds and seeing big storms and big thunderheads because I live in Oklahoma, and you get some of the biggest storms in the world around this area. But I remember seeing that and thinking like, that's where I'd rather be. And like, whenever you're living what would be like your dream, whenever like you're literally like, this is what I've always wanted to do, but there's something else that you want to do, you just like it's a weird feeling, and then you want to just chase that, pun intended.
I mean, I think being from Oklahoma, when I was driving across the country and we came out of West Arkansas and we hit Oklahoma, that was really when that western sky just opened up. So, I mean, rolling through the hills, there's a lot more trees. It was a much different like topography and vegetation. And then hitting Oklahoma, that sky is so huge that I could easily see someone just getting obsessed with what goes on up there, just like growing up there and seeing some of those crazy storms.
There's a thing called I'm almost psyching myself out and thinking I'm saying this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's called the 100th Meridian, and it has to do with the north-south line, and it goes through right about Oklahoma City. Like it almost splits Oklahoma in half. Like it does pretty much right through here. Yeah. And they built I-35 almost along it through the southern plains. And then the reason that it's so significant is right around the 100th Meridian is where you go from like eastern woodlands and like blackjack oaks and thick like hilly type topography, and to basically cross this area into central and then western Oklahoma, and you're in the plains. It's like somebody just flattened it out once you get east of Oklahoma or west of Oklahoma City, pretty much.
Is there's got to be some sort of reason for that? I mean, I'm trying to think, but I mean, it probably has to do with like the wind or something, but
I don't necessarily know, but I would guess that it probably has to do with where like the prehistoric Mississippi riverbed set up, and like where, because all this used to be ocean. So I imagine it has something to do with like, as the ocean receded, that area probably kept or retained water or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, that was one of those. That was one of those facts that just blew my mind, that there was a literal ocean in the middle of the country, and now I'm remembering that because it was on an episode of Walking with Dinosaurs. There was like a giant crocodile that lived in the middle of the United States, that Dinosuchus, which was just like 60 feet long, absolute beast. Yeah, so they
kind of goes back. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but
no, don't worry.
That reminds me of a conversation that you were talking about on Macrodosing about they could tell how long that a certain dinosaur had been somewhere because of the sediment on top of it. And I
Mhm.
remember Arian was kind of questioning that or whatever, but that's 100% facts because there used to be water over most of this area, but it didn't
Mhm.
all leave the same area at the same time. Like behind you, the Grand Canyon. If there
Yeah.
was 150 feet of water in that Grand Canyon and a dinosaur died, he would sink to the bottom. And then the setup, like that's how they figure out how long it's been
Yeah.
there.
This was my Zoom background for the last time I pulled up Zoom on this account, and I went to the Grand Canyon right after the Super Bowl just because I never been and I wanted to go, and I was out west. And I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at this behind me, this like rock formation looks like a temple. Like
Yeah.
this looks like a buried like Washington monument. Um, so like that was just wild. Like those scenes going out west were some of the craziest. Like
They're bigger
just
than anything, like the mountains and bluffs and even just
mm,
regular stuff while you're driving on the interstates out there.
yeah. I mean, getting back to storms. I mean, you can just when you get out there, like you can see so much sky. I mean, growing up in the Northeast, whenever the storms would hit, there was always trees, flooding, but you could never really see the whole of the storm. It
Yeah.
was more of like because you were either in a densely wooded area, there's no real plains. I mean, you could kind of see it over the ocean roll in,
Yeah.
but usually when a storm's coming in from the ocean, you try to stay away from the ocean. But
That's kind of a thing that we storm chasers deal with in the like the earlier months of the year, sometimes even starting in December to January, February. People know how the months work out, but the the storms kind of start down in the southeast US, like Mississippi, Alabama, and stuff like that. And there's some really strong storms, and there's a lot of times there's strong tornadoes down there. But like you're explaining, like the terrain and the trees and the hills, it makes it so hard to get a really good like bird or vantage point, and know what you're chasing and know how you need to chase it. A lot of times, like drones have been a really big time advantage to a lot of storm chasers because if you can get 10-ish, well, a few miles out ahead of the storm and throw your drone up, then you can get like a pretty good perspective as long as you're not in rain.
now, do you own any drones?
Yeah, I do. So for that real estate I was telling you about, I have my Part 107 certification, which is like
Oh,
commercial
nice.
drone certification. And I have a Mavic 2 Zoom. It's a pretty sweet one.
So I was reading up about that. Do you have to get an FAA license to do that? Because I heard of guys getting charged like just randomly. They were flying drones commercially and taking pictures like what you do, but
Yeah.
because they didn't have the right licensing or uh that you like they need the same licensing for a helicopter to do it for a drone, and it's like pretty hard to get. Did they change those laws or did you have to get some crazy certification?
It's still the same to where you do have to, you have to take an FAA test. You have to know about all kinds of different airspace. You have to know about like, you have to be able to keep visual line of sight of your drone at all times. You have to remember, I took the test, like you have to take, every 2 years, you have to renew your license. So I recently took the renewal test and it was quite a bit easier. But the OG test that you have to take takes like 2 hours and you have to get a certain percentage on it to pass. But it is pretty much without the flying part, it is an airman's registry test for the FAA.
That's crazy because I remember hearing some story about a guy getting a call from the FAA to seize doing business and taking pictures. I mean,
Yeah, there's storm chasers sometimes like in a emergency situation, like a lot of times if there's a mandatory evacuation or if like a whole neighborhood has just like got destroyed or something like that, they'll put a temporary flight restriction over which you're responsible for like to know about. And if you fly while that's up, like you can lose your license. Like you're
oh
literally,
wow.
it's an FAA violation, quite literally.
So, what kind of equipment do you use when you're rolling into these storms?
So whenever you first get started and it becomes like a hobby that you're like you have a little bit more kid brain or whatever and you just want to get all the cameras and all the nicest gear and like put a laptop in the car and have an iPad and all this stuff. But I've started to get to the point now where I function better. I can keep my train of thought lined up quite a bit better if I just use my phone and I have a handheld camera. I used to try to run a stream and everything while I was chasing, but it goes out so much, and I chase
Mm.
alone, and like it's not safe to like be driving and keeping up with a storm and messing with your internet connection and like praying it works or whatever. So I work a lot better now with my drone in my backpack right next to me, my handheld camera, which I mount on the dash, and then just my phone, which I have all my maps downloaded. So even if I lose internet, and then all the radar I need, which I use Radar Scope, which is a pretty good like weather app in
Mm.
general.
Now, what kind of car are you driving? You just going with a factory model, or did you have it modded out in any way?
I drive a pickup truck that is unfortunately not the greatest pickup truck in the USA that you're supposed to plug.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I was supposed to talk about it or not, but I drive exclusively, pretty much drive Toyotas. And when I
Mm.
first started, I had a RAV4, and then the transmission actually went out on that one. So then I went ahead and got myself a Toyota Tacoma, and those all
Mhm.
work pretty well. A lot of people think that like whenever they hear storm chaser or whatever, they think you got to have these big armored vehicles or like all this hail protection and stuff like that. But in my opinion, sometimes that's all like kind of for show, but
Mm.
not necessarily for show. Some people just enjoy driving right into the hail, and that's what they find fun. Excuse me, but I don't really find that fun. You can chase and be precise without getting hit by stuff and without like being in the hail core. Like you can follow a tornado from a half mile south of it as long as you like know what it's doing and understand like tornado genesis and how they work throughout the life of a tornado. You can kind of stay and parallel it without being in danger if you know what you're doing, kind of. And sometimes I don't. I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything.
Aren't we all? With like, did you use typical like windshields and windows, or did you change them up? Because I feel like you might end up like losing a couple windshields.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Glass definitely goes. So I have a pretty good glass connection in the city. They hook me up with cheap windshields. They know what's up. It's not like recently I got some of my back left glass blown out. My driver's side glass on the back left, it got blown out, and I tried to go through insurance and get like a safe light quote and everything like that, and they were quoting me $400. And I took it up to this shop up in the city where these people have replaced my windshields before and everything like that, and they did it for like 150. So you gotta just know the right glass plugs and connections.
So you feel that like just paying for the windshields is cheaper than like investing in some like
Oh yeah,
bulletproof.
yeah. You could blast a windshield out and get a new one for like $100 if you have like a pretty reasonable make and model of a car. Like I don't know about a Tesla windshield or something like that,
Mhm.
but my Toyota Tacoma gets pretty cheap windshield.
So I'm seeing that we're having a bunch of questions from the chat. First one, do you think Tornado Valley is moving eastward? Now, do you mind explaining to the listeners what Tornado Valley is?
Tornado Alley,
Oh,
accidentally. I think that guy might have accidentally put a V. But so it's gonna be mirrored, I think. Is my map mirrored? Oh well. So you got the Rocky Mountains here, they come all the way down from Canada and go all the way into Mexico. Typically, you've also got, not typically, the Gulf of Mexico is always right here. And you've got your jet stream comes over the top of the United States about 30 to 40,000 feet above your head where jets fly. That's why they call it the jet stream. But and that comes over the Rocky Mountains. And if you imagine a big ripple in that stream because of the Rocky Mountains, there would be generally lower pressure on the lee side, the east side of the Rocky Mountains. So that causes, the low pressure causes moisture to draw up from the Gulf of Mexico and replace the air that's gone because of the low pressure. So that moisture coming up, and then you also have cold fronts that crash down, and that creates low pressure systems that spin, not as fast as a hurricane or anything like that, but it is low pressure, and it has, basically I'm rambling now at this point, I'm over explaining it, but what Tornado Alley is the Rocky Mountains and the Gulf of Mexico, and the intersection between the processes that be whenever the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico comes up into the plains, and then the jet stream goes over that. That's what Tornado Alley is. So the question is Tornado Alley moving east? By all definitions of Tornado Alley, it's a geological feature kind of because of the way the mountains are and because of the way the Gulf is. So technically, no, Tornado Alley is not going to move east, but we are noticing that we're seeing more tornadoes over here in the Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, Indiana, that area further east. We're logging more tornadoes and seeing more tornadoes. Now, there could be more tornadoes. That could just be the fact that there are more tornadoes. But I think that part of it is as technology gets better, as everyone has a camera and everyone has a phone and everyone like is more connected now, like the grandma at the end of the road might be more inclined to take a picture or call the National Weather Service when 2 or 3 trees get knocked down than in like the 80s. She probably wouldn't have told anybody. She'd have just cleaned it up, you know, like, but now we go and we survey that and that's a tornado. Whereas used to, we might not have ever even known it happened. So I think that that's why we're starting to be able to log more tornadoes in the eastern part of the US.
And there's a higher population in the east, so there's more
true,
recorded. So like when it's in, you know, Wyoming or a less densely populated area, it doesn't get reported. That's really interesting.
Yeah. That's another thing, like a lot of people, this is kind of a lot more crazy tornado videos have been coming out of China in the last few years. Like,
oh wow,
people hadn't never really thought of China as being traditionally like having a bunch of severe weather. But also, I don't necessarily think that there's just been a lot more tornadoes. We're just getting a lot more video, and people, like I said earlier, people are more connected, and we're able to actually see it now.
Now, what are some of the things like? So do tornadoes, I remember there's a tornado up by us and it formed over the Hudson River and everyone was freaking out because it was like tornadoes usually never develop around bodies of water. Is that actually true?
No. So big, strong tornadoes are going to go where they're going. Nothing's really going to stop them. They're going to plow over whatever's in front of them, and they're just going to keep going until the processes of the storm, whatever would naturally decide it's time for the tornado to be done, decides that. Like a weaker tornado would be a lot more inclined to be affected by topography like that, but there's nothing about water. As a matter of fact, like moisture is what feeds the condensation of a tornado cloud. Like there's a lot of tornadoes that you never see because there's not enough moisture, but there is still like a rotating column of air connected to the bottom of the storm, but there's not enough moisture. If you add moisture to the equation, it might even like juice the tornado, but not necessarily.
So
the answer to the question is no, there's not really a correlation between that.
So is that funnel cloud that's always typical of people drawing tornadoes or depictions of tornadoes, that doesn't necessarily need to be seen for that to for it to be a tornado?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And a lot of times, like sometimes I've seen tornadoes where the funnel cloud only comes down like a quarter of the way or even half of the way, but you still have like a little fluff up at the surface, and you can tell that there is a connection, but you just can't see it all the way.
That's crazy. Now, have you ever seen a tunnel cloud touch down?
A funnel cloud?
Definitely. Yeah. Oh wow, is that like a pretty common?
Well, that would just be well, you know this, but that would just be a tornado. A funnel cloud on the ground would just be by definition a tornado. And but I've seen a few of those.
Seeing it develop out of the sky and touch down.
Oh yeah, that's seeing the full, like, okay, I got what you're saying. Seeing like the full life process from like start to finish is pretty rare because you have to be right in the perfect place at the perfect time. But it does happen sometimes. Like I have a video. Can I just press share? Do I still have permission there?
Yeah, I think you press share screen, then it'll pop up.
Like this tornado near Andover, Kansas. This was on April 29th.
Make sure you got nothing on in the background.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna double check.
You always see those videos of the professors in colleges sharing their screen and they just got tons of porn tabs open. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is correct. Sharing. Can you see my face anymore?
Yeah, I can see. Oh hell yeah. So did you film this?
Yeah, anything I show here is my footage for sure. Oh, this was April 29th of this year. I don't know how much. I'll kind of skip through here because I don't want to just show like minutes of footage. But
Wow.
so
Jeez.
this is the birth of the tornado, essentially. I'll go all the way back to the start. This is what it looks like when you can tell it's about to happen for sure.
Oh wow.
Big elephant trunk starting to come out of the sky there.
Holy fuck. That's
And then
scary as shit.
I was actually driving at this point. I had driven too far east and I had to double back and go back west and kind of floor it at this tornado, which is now moving towards me, but a little bit further north. And so
Now, when you were moving east, was that to go towards the tornado or get away from it? Like,
yeah, to get closer here because I had
okay.
gotten too far away. But here you can
God.
see there's some other chasers up here to the right of the road. And this angle right here, just for a split second with the setting sun, I slowed it down.
Oh wow.
That's the birth of the tornado there.
So you guys are like paparazzi for, for tornadoes. You're all
Pretty
like
much,
seeing each
dude.
other.
Some people are shameless about that. Yeah, some people act almost exactly like paparazzi.
Damn. Is there
And then
like
here is an
is-
inset of here in a second. Yeah, you can see it closer to the ground right there.
oh wow.
So it's maybe not all the way down right there, but it's you can tell it's still messing stuff up.
Jesus. So how big would you say that is, that part that touches the ground?
I could check the actual report because the NWS does the reports like that.
But like typically,
would
is it like a
guess-
football field?
It varies with every tornado is different, but that one right there looked to be about 200-ish yards. Yeah, so maybe like 2 football fields.
Jesus.
And then up here is kind of the most interesting part of this tornado. Trying to find it. This is where it's coming into town right here and it's starting to hit stuff. Look at these people right here. I wish I could do it frame by frame. But when I'm coming through this intersection, I'm really scared right here because I see 2 vehicles with their doors open and just nobody around. I was like, wait, where are these people? I was looking around. They were on the backside of their truck, just stopped in the middle of the road videoing this thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah, this thing's coming into town now. Like I said, this is Andover, Kansas on May 29th. Watch right here. This is some of the craziest footage I've ever gotten to shoot right here.
Dude, that
As
looks
it
like it's
comes-
about to touch down right on top of you.
No, it is. Watch.
Oh, like, holy shit.
And there's a neighborhood and things there. That's the electrical lines popping right there as it rips through. And you can see it. There's a house right there on the corner.
Now, what do you
That's
do?
my-
Like,
Go ahead.
now when you're like seeing this and like, what are you thinking at this exact moment where you're seeing shit blow up and right in front of you?
Like it sounds corny, but you're not really thinking much. It's almost like sports. If you ever played baseball, or I know you played sports, but
Yeah.
like if you ever played baseball and you hit the ball and you ran as fast as you could and you just look around and now you're on second base and you don't remember running to second base, but here you are on second base. It's just kind of like,
Dude, so you're not even thinking. You're just,
you're
it's
just
blackout.
functioning. You're
Yeah.
operating.
Holy.
And then right up here, this is it hitting a neighborhood also, unfortunately. The
Oh my
crazy thing about
God.
this tornado is like there's a really crappy feeling that you get in your stomach while you're watching this. Is you're like, I'm watching people's whole entire house get messed up, and like there's people inside of those homes. Usually, like it's not a fun, exciting feeling while it's happening, really. And the craziest part about this tornado is that only 3 people were injured and there were no deaths. So like,
Okay, so we don't have to feel guilty about watching this. That's
yeah. I mean,
Jesus.
it definitely messed stuff up, but yeah, that thing was going crazy. I'll try to find it. I can't see my top tab.
So what would hypothetically happen if you were in that, if that thing took a weird turn? You know, I know you're probably more experienced in this, but if it hypothetically did just pop up right in, like on top of you, like, would you get pulled up?
It depends on the strength. I keep saying that. It depends on the tornado, but if that tornado in particular hit my truck, it would have blasted all my windows out. It might have rolled me 3 or 4 times. I'm trying to find a couple more cool tornado videos. I only have hurricane stuff pulled up after this.
So
Go ahead.
do you chase more tornadoes or hurricanes?
Whichever opportunity presents itself. So hurricanes are typically in the fall, like
Mhm.
August, September, and then tornadoes are usually like April, May. So there's different seasons that you go with. This is what you call oh, I was gonna say you go with the flow, but this is what you call a multi-vortex tornado here. So
there's
this
like
tornado,
two.
you can see the giant cinnamon bun looking thing here.
Uh-huh.
And then underneath it, you've got your classic funnel shape. But as it struggles to get all the way to the ground, kind of as it consolidates itself here in a second, you'll see different vortexes kind of like become their own, but all at the same time, like in like a almost like a carousel fashion. See
Oh yeah.
those
Yeah.
tendrils?
Oh my God, that looks like like a giant octopus, just like
Yeah, there's a bunch more. There's some even crazier videos out there of multi-vortex. This is kind of a mid example, but there's some like if you look up the Wynnewood, Oklahoma tornado on May 9th, 2016, it's probably my favorite example of a multi-vortex tornado. Now I'm spending too much time only showing clips, but
no, I mean this is
is
crazy. Just the landscape without the tornado is beautiful.
yeah, right here. I'm on a section road. So this road is 1 mile from end road to end road. And this is only about a quarter mile from me here on the section as these tendrils kind of consolidate. We tried to, if you look at the cursor here, we tried to go back down this road to the south and then cut. I explained it here in the video, but no one wants to hear me twice. There was power poles down though, so we had to turn around. And this giant tornado is just planting in the field next to us, sucking everything into it, and it was hard to turn around.
Oh, like physically it was hard to turn the vehicle because of
I thought my car was messed up for a sec.
because it was gonna flip.
Yeah, and then later in the life cycle of this thing, we got close again when it was about to die.
Wow.
But you can, this is what's called a rain wrap tornado. We're starting to be able to not see it, but it is in there. A big V shape in there.
How do you know where it is? Like, what if in like 1 second it turns and then you're just in the center of it?
You use your vectors on the ground. See, I'm looking at right here. If I can't see the tornado at all, I'm looking at the ground and I'm looking at the direction of the wind because it's going to follow the tornado kind of like a sink drain. Also, the answer is you don't 100%. Sometimes it could just double back on you. But if you know kind of your wind vectors on the ground like that, and if you ever have wind directly at your back or directly at your nose, you probably have something heading towards you or away from you. And that's when you should probably worry.
Whoa. Now, what is the scariest, like, what was the worst situation that you've ever been in storm chasing where you're like, oh shit, this is touch and go?
Good question. It'll lead me right into another video here. Is Hurricane Harvey. It was my first hurricane I ever chased. And I was expecting like a category 1 when I went down there. I didn't really know what to expect because it was my first. Like I had chased severe weather and tornadoes and stuff, but it ripped apart the entire east wall of our hotel.
Oh my God.
And one of our friends even wrecked his car on the way to the hotel. So here's us coordinating like a rescue. We're trying to figure out his elevation and stuff, like based on how high the storm surge is going to be and where he's at. There was even a point as it started to get really bad. The clip I'm about to show is the firefighters that were stationed in the hotel with us. They're there to they're not really there to keep us safe, but they're there to be stationed in town and be like emergency managers on the ground as soon as it's over. And this is what they had to say about it. I'll go ahead and give dialogue beforehand. They are getting the hell out of there. They literally grabbed all their stuff and got in the fire truck and left before it got really, really bad because they were so spooked. You can see stuff start to fall off the building here. This is in Rockport, Texas.
Oh my God.
So this is category 4 Hurricane Harvey. These are the firefighter guys.
And they're just dipping.
Yeah, listen to them here.
I don't think we can get audio on it.
Oh, my bad. Okay, so basically what they're saying is he looks at me and he goes, shit, dude. And I was like, are you guys, because at this point, I'm kind of scared. I don't really know what's going on. And he looks at me and goes, shit, dude. And I was like, well, what are you guys thinking? And the other guy just looks at me right here and he goes, we're getting the hell out of here. and they just leave.
Were they getting, when you're like staying in these places, and you have like first responders with you, are they sometimes like pissed you're there? Because just kind of like,
yeah, there are. It depends on. There's a lot of different kinds of personalities that come out in an emergency situation like that. How do I come back and just look at you for a sec?
when you're in those danger situations, you know, at like the ground zero of whatever emergency place you are the first responders receptive to you guys being there, or are they kind of like, these guys are almost like crisis vultures?
A lot of times you get some of both. A lot of times there are guys, when you're in like thick of it and things are actually going wrong, if you'll help and then stay out of the way, they'll respect you and they won't really say much because they're really busy. But a lot of times there'll be people that just want to like walk around with a camera everywhere and treat it like it's a vacation, and kind of like some storm chasers chase just for fun, like, and those kind of people, and I chase for fun. I'm not better than anybody, but a lot of people are just kind of out there, and there are emergency services that get pretty mad sometimes. Like, I got pulled over during Hurricane Nate. It was just a category 1, and there was only like 70-mile-per-hour winds at the time. But the guy barked at me about like emergency or like a mandatory evacuation or something like that. But I had some credentials that got me out of it. But it's like, either you see how chill a person is and how understanding they are, or you see how somebody might treat an event like that like their Super Bowl. Like, this is my biggest event like that has happened in my county for a while or whatever. Like, you get some of each type of personality.
Huh. So Harvey was probably the craziest you were involved in?
Definitely. There was Hurricane Laura was a category 4 as it came in also. I'm about to show you that.
Now, are hurricanes even that good of visuals? Because tornadoes, like, it's got the drop down, it's got everything. Like, I feel like hurricanes, like, what are you filming in a hurricane?
A lot of times with a hurricane, like if it hits at night, like exactly like you said, you basically just have to video what's going on around you, like the story. Like with that Harvey video I showed you, we were trying to figure out how to rescue a guy named Mike Tice. His car had gotten blown off the road, and like you have to kind of just follow like a storyline like that about, and then also towards the end of that video, the eastern wall of our hotel gets ripped off, and we start to like really worry about the structural integrity. And like basically, if it's a dark intercept where the storm comes in the dark, you have to follow a storyline like that. But in the daytime, you kind of find like a concrete wall or somewhere secluded or somewhere really safe, and you basically just video stuff flying by. Like, stuff will just fly by. There's a video I'm about to share. This is from Hurricane Laura in 2020, and this is us. We stayed up on the top floor of the hotel a little bit too long, and we kind of got stuck up there while the top floor got ripped apart around us. And in this video, you can see the debris flying by in the stairwells and stuff like that. Like right here.
Oh my God. So that's,
yeah, so here, this is not a great situation to be in. We stayed on the 3rd floor of this hotel a little bit too long getting video. And by this time, all the cheap plastic from the outside of the hotel is just blowing down every breezeway like it's a shooting gallery.
Now, when you were saying 70-mile-per-hour winds aren't that fast, how fast do you think those winds were?
What I just showed, the debris flying down the breezeway like that from Hurricane Laura, the winds in that were probably like 120 to 130 miles per hour. Yeah. So you got to find a wall, and you can't be out in, you can't be exposed to that, because there'll just be stuff flying through the air. Shingles will hurt you at that speed. Like,
Jesus. Oh my God. So, I mean, do you film a lot of the eyes of the storm when it comes to hurricanes? Or
yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. Like Hurricane Harvey, I was so spooked during Hurricane Harvey. It was, like I said, it was my first one, and it scared me so bad that during the eye, we spent the eye finding like a concrete structure, which ended up being the high school in Fulton, Texas. We found a concrete structure and then wrote out the whole second half of the storm next to that concrete structure because we were so scared of the hotel. But like, I missed that. That's the best eye I've ever been in, was Hurricane Harvey. There was a clear sky. There were stars above. Like, people have it's called a stadium effect, because you're in the center of the storm, and then the clouds kind of go out around you like this. And when you look around, it's kind of like you're in a cloud stadium all around you, and there's stars above. but I was so spooked during that storm, I didn't really appreciate it like I should have, because I was trying to find somewhere to like go survive or whatever.
I mean, you got the footage though. Do you have any footage of the eye?
I'll try to find.
I mean, because I've been in the eyes of a couple storms, and it's just like a type of eerie piece
Yeah,
that,
the frogs usually are loud.
yeah. I
Hold on, I'm
mean,
trying to find a good one here.
now when you're
Like the eye of Hurricane Michael. I'm sorry.
no
Go
worries.
ahead.
When you're calling these hotels like book places, are people like, why the hell are you coming here? There's a storm.
A lot of times, and then a lot of times they know what's up because like news reporters from ABC and like all kinds of different emergency management personnel are coming down there. So the hotels are more full than you would ever think, but that's a different kind of crowd usually.
Huh.
I'm trying to find a good eye. Harvey, like I said, was the best one I've been in. I was in the eye of Laura, but it was dark outside and kind of like what they call murky.
Yeah.
I was trying to find
Do you
the
end up
footage.
do you end up seeing a lot of the same chasers?
Yeah, we all end up at the same spots usually, especially during a hurricane, because there'll be one or two hotels in the area that are like safe enough to stay in, and we'll all end up staying in the same couple hotels.
Huh.
Right here, you can. Oh, I'm not even sharing anymore. Hold on, I'll go back. Right here, this clip, you can see there's a Super 8 hotel across the street that was closed because it was not hurricane rated.
Uh-huh.
And you can see the roof of this hotel across the street get ripped off here in 1 second.
Holy shit.
This
Oh
is,
my God,
yeah,
look
at
at
this
that
point it got
Dodge.
bad enough. We had to like just be in the room poking out our cameras. You can
Look at
see the
that
roof flying through
Dodge.
the air right there. That stuff is big chunks of plywood and
Holy
shingles.
shit.
And then about 20 minutes after this, we emerge. There's my pressure reading. That's when you get at the absolute lowest pressure and it stops dropping. That's when you're in the middle. And that's my location there on
Oh
radar.
wow.
And then here in a second, it was so humid that I couldn't keep the water off my lens in the eye. There was bugs and frogs.
Huh. Now, what's the farthest you drive? Like, what's your like radius around your home base?
If for a hurricane, I'll go to wherever. Like I flew to Hawaii one time for a hurricane, that was before I understood very much about meteorology, because Hawaii
Yeah.
is just giant mountains in the middle of the ocean, which tend to just shred hurricanes apart. But there
Huh.
was a hurricane named Hurricane Lane that was going out there in like 2018, I think, and I flew out there to try and intercept it, but it completely fell apart by the time it got there, and I just wasted my time. But
Damn.
I'll go wherever. Like I went to Wilmington Beach in North Carolina for Hurricane Florence. I've been out there a couple of times for Hurricane Dorian also. So wherever a good storm is, I'll go.
How is Hawaii? I mean, you're in Hawaii. It couldn't have been that bad.
Well, yeah, I was
What-
kind of broke though. I wasn't very well off. I was like, I'm only 24 right now. So at the time, this is 2018, I would have been 20 and I didn't have very much money. And I was literally trying to pay my bills by storm chasing. And it's really hard to
Yeah.
do that. So I'm literally out there. I didn't have a credit card and I was only 20. So I rented a U-Haul truck. So I was driving a U-Haul truck around instead of like, because that was the only,
Yeah.
and I slept in it a few nights. Like that was a wild experience. It's
Yeah.
always kind of cool to fail like that, just to have those stories.
Oh, exactly. I mean, so you can kind of see how these situations breeds a lot of competition amongst like storm chasers. Everyone wants to be in front. They don't want to have another storm chaser in their shot.
Yeah.
So you can see how it gets so competitive that someone might say that you have stolen footage. Because I feel like that's like the biggest like hacker equivalent for gamers.
Yeah,
like,
for real.
But that's nuts. I mean, so do you know that you have like a couple screws loose when it comes to this stuff? Or you think
Yeah,
that you're totally
relatively.
normal?
I definitely know that there's screws loose because I think I'm more normal than a lot of the people that do it. But I know that I'm like wanting to drive and like track a tornado in real time is not necessarily a natural thing for sure.
What are some like guys who you think are psychos? Like what sets them apart from the rest?
A lot of people don't really care like about their relationships. Like it's hard to be storm chasing all the time and on the road all the time, and just constantly. Like it takes a lot of brain power to forecast. It takes a lot of there's like a I don't know if you've heard of adrenal fatigue. Like after a
Yeah.
really after seeing a really big tornado or a really like a 3-day hurricane chase where you're like trying to find a safe place and then the hurricane hits and then you got to find your way out and make sure you have enough food and everything like that. Like you get home and just feel terrible and like you'll feel sad, like you'll feel depressed and you'll feel anxious because that adrenal fatigue has literally just fried your brain. You're so tired. Like you have to make sure, like when I was younger, I wouldn't eat and drink. Like I just would be so focused and like dialed in that I would,
Wow.
and then with like a dose of anxiety, just the slight fear in the background kind of just translates to anxiety. But as I've grown up, obviously I've learned you have to eat, you have to make sure you eat and drink a bunch of fluids and everything like that. Like,
Wow. You're just so on edge that you just crash. Huh.
definitely. Yeah. Whenever dude, I used to smoke like a pack of cigarettes while I would chase and stuff. I'd be so nervous, but I'm not bragging about that. That's disgusting. But I would get so nervous. Like the first big high risk day that I chased, the Storm Prediction Center, they put out certain levels of risk for
Mhm.
like severe weather, and high risk is the highest level of risk. And the first one of those days I ever chased, I was so nervous that I had to have my girlfriend drive most of the day because I was throwing up. I was like, and I was so new to chasing. I'd only been chasing like a year and I didn't know what to expect and I didn't know very much about forecasting. And all I knew is that like high risk means big, giant, strong tornadoes. And I also understood that I didn't know what I was doing. So I was so nervous about it.
So did you go alone or did you storm chase with your girlfriend?
She goes with me when she can, but she's also in school and does a bunch of other stuff. She's
Yeah.
actually a professional human who
Yeah.
keeps responsibilities and has a degree and stuff like that. So
I feel like a bunch of those storm chaser guys gotta be doing some math. I mean, like,
yeah, there's a lot of people that do Adderall and stuff like that, but I'm
yeah,
already high strung. I got ADHD and my brain runs fast as crap, and that stuff makes me jittery.
yeah,
I
I can
can't do all
imagine.
that. That stuff's wild. There's literally
Um,
storm chasers that'll go for like 3 and 4 days on end, and like you're like, how do you do that naturally? Like, I don't understand. That can't be safe.
what's your break between storms? Do you like give yourself a break or do some tornadoes back to back?
A lot of times, in like the springtime, like it just depends on the pattern. If you got a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that look good for storm chasing, you're chasing all 3 of those days. Like hopefully you see a tornado all 3 days. You might just see a tornado one of those days, but also that's the main tornado season. So April, May, June, you're busy, probably 3 days a week storm chasing. But like right now, it's well, April, May, early June. Right now it's late June, and I haven't really chased a whole lot. It's really hot outside. There's not a whole bunch of storms. Like I'm kind of waiting until hurricane season starts, and then I'll transition into that. Like, so you
Huh,
just play it by ear. They're not
awesome.
really good storms that you want to chase are kind of rare. So you get lucky whenever you want to, like a really good day like that, you definitely are going to be out. And if there's 3 or 4 of them in a row, you'll chase all 3 or 4 of them.
That's amazing. Now, why don't we get a couple more questions from the crowd? If anyone's got any, this has been amazing, Gage. This has been some awesome footage,
Appreciate it.
awesome stories.
Storms
I
are
mean,
cool, dude. I'm not amazing. Storms are amazing.
yeah, that's
I could talk about
facts.
them for way too long.
I know. I mean, do you have any other activities that matches chasing a storm that you'd ever like? Is there anything else that gets you going like a storm or nothing?
It's not, no, not really. It's not really like an adrenaline junkie thing. Like I don't want to like ride dirt bikes or like jump out of a plane or anything
Yeah.
like that. Like I kind of just really love the science part about it. Like as you learn more about science, it's like you put the puzzle pieces together in your head and know more about what's happening in front of you, and then you see it. Like that's just like a really satisfying feeling to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's actually honestly like out of all the reasons you're chasing storms and, putting yourself in danger, it's not the adrenaline, it's not the lifestyle. It's just literally the love of storms and just
Yeah,
being a
just
10-year-old obsessed.
Exactly. Yeah. Like 10-year-old me used to look at those things and be like, what in the world? And now I kind of understand a little bit what's going on. Like that just
Yeah.
feels cool.
Question from the crowd. Would you ever sort of go out into the ocean to chase storms?
I
Like
don't think so. I've gone deep sea fishing a few times, and just like on a bad day, there's just 2 or 3 foot waves, which aren't really that bad, and I was throwing up. So like, I don't think I would do very well. I like land. You can't really drown on land. I mean,
Yeah.
I could probably figure it out, but
Other questions from the crowd? Oh, you don't have to answer that one.
not necessary. The answer to that, it says, is having sex in the eye of a hurricane on your bucket list? I would say no. It's not. Just getting in the eye of any hurricanes on my bucket list.
The adrenal fatigue. Is there a white whale storm that you're looking to chase?
So I probably a F5 would be cool to chase, but it would also feel like I said, in order for a storm to get rated F5, it would have to like go through a town and hit a bunch of stuff, and that's how they would rate it, and that would be really crappy. So like saying I want to chase an F5 is cool and all, but also saying that is like I want to see really bad devastation. That's not what I'm trying to say, but an F5 would be cool to see.
Would you ever want to fly above the cloud line and see a tornado from above it?
I think about the best you could do is a drone, because once you get above a certain level, which is like called your lifted condensation level, once you get above that, which is a lot of people generally around your lifted condensation level is where you have a thing called a collar cloud, which is like the edge of your rotation basically. And the tornado is going to stay under that collar cloud inside of that rotation. And once you get above that in elevation, you're not going to be able to really like see anything through or underneath that.
Awesome. I mean, this has been a great tour de force of hurricanes,
Yeah.
tornadoes.
Oh yeah,
The
We're
wilds of
powering through.
nature.
We're bringing Billy's list to the top.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much, Gage, for coming on. I think we're going to wrap it up there because these things can go for hours.
Yeah,
if you
for
let
sure.
them, try and keep them short and sweet to keep people.
If I could plug one thing real quick, it would
Oh
be
yeah,
my-
100%.
my YouTube page. It's just Gage Shaw, and I've already showed some videos off of it. All those videos are off of my YouTube page. So if you see the little Gage Shaw and the S is a lightning bolt watermark on the bottom, that's my page. Y'all can go check some videos out on there for hours probably.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to tag your YouTube in the blog, in the
Tweet.
YouTube page, tweet, subscribe to Macrodosing. Also subscribe to Gage's YouTube because some of those visuals he showed us was awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Appreciate you, Bill.
Awesome. Thank you, Gage. This show would be me talking to myself if it wasn't for the guys at Billy's List. So hopefully
Billy's
one day
Army
we
always,
get through
bro.
all of them. The militia freaking mopped up the Macrodosing Discord. Because if you guys saw that Discord, it was just totally like
I haven't even checked that out yet. I'm just all Bill's list.
we cleaned it up, but it was a wild west that we needed a SWAT team to go in there. There was dudes, posting pictures of their nuts. There was just
goodness.
like rampant, every ism you've ever thought of, just like serious racism, homophobia.
That doesn't
just
sound like
dudes.
Bill's list. Holy crap.
No. So we had to send in the militia, and we got the bad dudes out of there. But there was multiple dudes posting pictures of their nuts, like not just one. Like there wasn't just one guy who was doing it a bunch of places. There was several people. And I was
Just
like,
a trend.
what? Like what
Yeah.
kind of group just like gets that going?
Gotta take some nuts where you can get them.
Yeah, I know it's Pride Month, but that wasn't their intent. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Subscribe to Macrodosing and Gage's YouTube. Thank you all. Awesome. Billy's List out. Peace.